I want to start out by reading a letter I received from somebody who is trying to assist the victims of Hurricane Helene and has been rebuffed. It says, Larry, if you're wondering why citizens are being turned away that are coming to North Carolina and Tennessee to help, you want to hear my experience as someone who's been doing this as a private citizen for almost a decade. I was able to get into and out of Asheville. We brought food, water, fuel, and other supplies, as well as help people affected by the floods, but there are reasons why they are not allowing outside help. I cannot confirm the reasons in North Carolina, but I can tell you the reasons in other storms I've worked with. Let me share with you the first disaster area that I finally realized this was all about money. It was in the Florida Keys after Hurricane Irma, after Texas got hit with Harvey. We finished our efforts in Texas, and we were the first citizen team to make it to Key Largo. The federal agency had US 1 shut down just south of Key Largo and wouldn't let anyone in or out, even though the road was okay to pass. We explained to them we had boats, jet skis, food, water, chainsaws, and fuel to bring in these people. They didn't care, and they wouldn't let us in. It was night by that point, and you rarely saw the lights of vehicles in the distance on the individual keys, meaning the emergency response team from FEMA weren't even working. It was all quiet. We decided that we would go in anyway. We filled up the boats and jet skis with all that we could reasonably carry, and we went by water around all their blockades and around their law enforcement presence on the water. It was 87 miles by water to get to our first stop, Cujo Key and Sugarloaf Key. When we arrived there, we were greeted by a homeowner. For privacy, I won't name him, even though we have video, who was elated to see us and all the supplies we brought. His house was in shambles. We started offloading supplies on the shoreline and helping to get them into what was left of his house. During that process, he explained to us that FEMA had set up a command center at a local high school on the island, but that they weren't doing anything to help the residents, not even bringing them water. Instead, he explained they were driving around using a loudspeaker, telling people to stay in their homes. They weren't even helping the homeowners with the supplies. I was skeptical at first while he was telling me all of this, but then he said something that broke my heart. He told us the people of the Keys were all in despair because they had just seen, weeks before, overwhelming support for Texas with Hurricane Harvey by the citizens of the country. He and his neighbors, all in the Keys, felt like Americans had forgotten about them completely because at this point, 5 days after landfall, all they had seen was FEMA, and they were of no help. The residents were cut off from the outside world, no cellular, no internet, no way to contact anyone or hear of any efforts to try to help them. The only communication they had was from a local radio station on Sugarloaf Key that was broadcasting on AM to the surrounding keys. The man, after hearing that there were citizens trying to bring them help, but being refused entry by law enforcement, was visibly upset. He and his neighbors really thought the country had abandoned them. He insisted that we get into his waterlogged truck and that he would take us to the radio station so that we could go on air live to tell citizens trapped in the Keys that we, the American people, were there to help and the government was trying to stop our efforts. And that's exactly what we did. After that, we were determined to help as many people as we could, but we were met with red tape throughout the whole process, and in time, we were in the Keys. We were finally able to talk with some authorities to let us down to the Ferro Blanco Resort in Marathon towards the end of Boot Key. This was the same hotel where state and local authorities were staging their personnel, and they were happy to see us. I was able to coordinate several trucks full of supplies to be brought down to the EOC in Marathon. I was privy to the EOC meeting, but was informed at that meeting that all the semi-trucks full of food, water, and hygiene supplies were being turned around and not allowed to be offloaded for distribution by the EOC. The reason they gave us was that these donations were not from companies on their preferred vendors list and that they would not accept them or give them to the residents of the Keys impacted by the storm. At this point, I realized this was all about money. These preferred vendors are getting part of the money being released by the state and federal government for each disaster. In turn, some of the vendors make it on the list because a friend gets them on the list, and in return for getting ridiculously outlandish amounts of compensation for the services they render, they give kickbacks. So accepting outside donations, even though they were on location and can help people right now, they would rather let people suffer so they can get the kickbacks. This meeting solidified my resolve to help these people regardless of what the greedy officials wanted. We were going to feed the lower keys that were being neglected. I delivered all semi-trucks to the Ferro Blanco Resort in Marathon and filled the first floor with pallets upon pallets of food, water, and essential supplies, and created a food pantry for residents to come and get anything and however much they needed. From local state troopers to the homeless, all were given wheelbarrows and free rein to get whatever they need. We also delivered supplies down to Big Pine Key, and we helped establish this tent city on Big Pine Key. Big companies like Tito's Vodka and Whalen just kept bringing trucks full of everything that was needed. When FEMA finally started handing out boxes of canned goods limited to one household, we were filling cars full of food and supplies for people and pets. There's so much more story on the Keys, and further from the other storms we worked. The common theme is that the federal government always tries to keep citizens from helping other local authorities. The ones that live in and work in the area are always happy to have outside help. I call out to Elon Musk and anyone else who can monetarily help people like myself and those who work with me who have knowledge and have the will to help these devastated disasters. I don't know whether that's what's going on right now, he writes, but it wouldn't surprise me. Now, according to The Federalist, which is a conservative publication, Biden and Harris have used FEMA disaster funds for illegal aliens to the tune of $1 billion. I mention that because when Joe Biden was asked, is there anything else he can do, he said, we've given all the aid that we can. FEMA allocated $364 million in fiscal year 2023 and $650 in fiscal year 2024 to the, quote, Shelter and Services Program to provide humanitarian services to non-citizen migrants following their release from the Department of Homeland Security, end of quote. That's according to the government's own website. And by the way, FEMA's top priorities under the Harris-Biden administration do not even list disaster relief among the top two goals of FEMA. According to FEMA's own website, the stated goals include, first, quote, instilling equity as a foundation of emergency management. Second, leading whole of communities in climate resilience. And third, to promote and sustain a ready FEMA and prepared nation. So the primary service of FEMA, which is to help people in disasters, is listed third under FEMA's own website. Now, as you know, a lot of people there have no satellite, have no cell phone. However, there was a grant for Starlink that is produced by Elon Musk that the Biden administration turned down. Now, recently, Mayorkas has talked about how there's been a Starlink receiver, 30 Starlink receivers in western North Carolina. He just now put out that advisory. And Elon Musk noted that you revoked a grant for Starlink that would have given access to a lot of people. And he said that politics, because you don't like me, I'm paraphrasing, means that a lot of people are now without service who otherwise would have service, but for the fact that you don't like Elon Musk. Really? $1 billion to illegal aliens out of FEMA? And now you're telling people in North Carolina and the other states that are impacted by Hurricane Helene there's no more money?